Krishna Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. All glories to Prabhupada, all glories to you. Thank you very much for giving your association today, Maharaj. So, His Holiness Bhanu Swami Maharaj is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada and GBC Executive Committee member. He is author of translated many wonderful Gaudiya Vaishnava literature, example Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Murari Gupta Karacha, and many other books. So we'll hear today from Maharaj on Gaur Leela, from Madhya Leela pastimes. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Okay. Should I start?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. I'll put a PowerPoint on it.
So,
Do you see it?
yes, Maharaj. Gaura Tattva. Yep.
Okay. This is a little philosophical, maybe not so much pastimes, but anyway, we should have a little philosophy also. If we look in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we'll see that there's both things. There's pastimes and there's also philosophy. And of course, the philosophical sections are contained in things like conversations between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy, or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Prakasananda Saraswati, like this, and a few talks with Rupa and Sanatan and others. So, and anyway, that's one side of the philosophy. And then the other is the actual positions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers. So I'll maybe just speak a little bit about on that, because within our Sampradaya, we accept Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Supreme Lord. So normally we think of, okay, he's an avatar of Krishna or whatever. So that's true. And other Sampradayas, of course, don't accept that or have difficulty understanding that. Because, okay, where is that in the scripture? We see the list of the avatars in the Bhagavatam. It doesn't mention Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at all, like that. So those are the Leela avatars that are mentioned in one place in the Bhagavatam. Then we have the Yuga avatars. So there, of course, when we come to the Kali Yuga avatar, in that description in the 11th canto, you'll find that there is a description that suits Lord Chaitanya very nicely. More than other Vaishnavacharyas, like we can't say the same thing about Ramanujacharya or Madhvacharya, that the main thing is Sankirtan, but obviously Sankirtan is the main thing for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so that fits very nicely with the predictions in the Bhagavatam that the Yuga Avatar propagates Sankirtan in Kali Yuga. So we have at least that, but more than that even is that not only is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu avatar, he's actually more than an avatar, because he's not just one of the Yuga avatars. The Yuga avatars are described as actually being, in the Kali Yuga avatar especially, is not a real avatar, he's a Shaktivesh avatar, because Bhagavatam also says the Lord appears in 3 yugas, he's Tri Yuga, that's one of the names of the Lord. So that means he appears as avatar in Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, and Dwapara Yuga, but he does not appear in Kali Yuga. But nevertheless, we have a Yuga avatar, Kali Yuga avatar. So how do we solve that problem? So our acharyas explain that in Kali Yuga, this avatar is actually a Shaktivesh avatar. So that solves the problem. Okay, he's kind of like the Lord, but he's also a Jiva. So then that means the Lord, as Bhagavan does not appear in Kali Yuga, the Shaktivesh avatar appears. But we don't take Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a Shaktivesh avatar also. And we don't even take him as an avatar. We take him as avatari, which means the source of the avatars. So that title is usually reserved for Krishna, taking the support of the verse in the Bhagavatam, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, of all these different forms mentioned of the Lord, some of which are Shaktivesh avatars like the Kumaras and Narada. Others are full avatars like Varaha and Kurma, etc. But then Krishna is Bhagavan Swayam. He's a little special. He's different from the others. And so then he is called the Avatari. He is the source of all the other avatars, not in the temporal sense because they're all eternal, but he is the primary form of the Lord. of Bhagavan, so I am Bhagavan, and the others are, we can say, other forms which are not complete manifestations of all the qualities of God. And so we know that in Nectar Devotion there, Krishna is described as having 64 qualities, whereas the Vishnu forms have 60 qualities. So Krishna has 6 more qualities. And even Shiva is 55 qualities. He's also considered to be a form of the Lord, but because he manifests less qualities, he's put in a different category. So then Krishna is put in a separate category from the other forms of Bhagavan because he has the 4 extra qualities. But then our acharyas explain, well, actually, it's only one Supreme Lord anyway, so then all the forms have all the qualities. They cannot be imperfect. That's true. But in certain forms, the Lord will manifest out of his 64 qualities. He may manifest 60 qualities or 60 and a half maybe, or 59 and a half, or 55 or whatever. And accordingly, he has different forms to manifest these different amounts of qualities. All the qualities are there, but in that particular form, he does not manifest them. So in that sense, Krishna is the source of all the avatars, and we call him Avatari. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is non-different from Krishna. He's not an expansion of Vishnu or non-different from Nrsimha or Rama or anybody else. He is another form of Krishna. So as Krishna is Avatari, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also Avatari. He's the same as Krishna, so he has to be Avatari also, but slightly different. So that's the concept that is presented in different works of the acharyas and Chaitanya Charitamrita and other works. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Lord, but it's a special form of the Supreme Lord like Krishna. So Krishna appears also as a Yuga avatar in the Dwapara Yuga. But he's also special. He's not just a Yuga avatar like in the other 99 or 999 Yuga avatars in Dwapara Yuga in one day of Brahma. Those are all just avatars, expansions from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. But Krishna is not an expansion from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. He is the source of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So therefore, Krishna is very special when he appears once in a day of Brahma. In Swayambhuva Manvantara, in not Swayambhuva Manvantara, Vaivasvata Manvantara, in the day of Brahma, which is that's the 7th Manvantara, in the 27th cycle, he appears. So the form is very, very special. He only appears once in a day of Brahma. And even though usually, they're just expansion forms, the other Dwapara Yuga forms. So Krishna's Avatari, and he appears in place of the regular avatar. So in Kali Yuga, instead of the Shaktavesh avatar that appears in Kali Yuga usually, then we have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appearing as Avatari also. So they're both special cases, once in a day of Brahma. So from this, we understand that the appearance of Lord Chaitanya is very special, as well as the appearance of Krishna. That's also very special. And the two go together. They're very intimately related. And for that reason, when we speak about the spiritual Dharma in the spiritual world, we talk about, Vaikuntha with all the Vishnu planets there and whatever. We got Ayodhya Loka up there, and then we get Goloka at the top. And where is Gauranga? Where is Navadvip? Where is Mayapur? So in the commentary on Brahma Samhita there, Jiva Goswami describes that Chaitanya's abode, Navadvip, is right next to Krishna's abode in Goloka, because they're so similar. So it's right on the top also, as Goloka is on the top. So Navadvip is also on the top, right next to it. And there are two forms of Krishna, let's say. One is the black form, one is the golden form. So in this way, the abode of Gauranga, Navadvip, is also a spiritual abode. So when the Lord appears in the material world, he appears in Vrindavan, within the Mathura Mandala. And that is described also like a lotus. and with petals on it, with a different forest there, whatever. And similarly, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears in Navadvip, also he appears within the Dham, which is like a lotus. So this is being explained very carefully by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, especially in the Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, where he describes the Antardvip as the middle, like the center of the lotus, and then we got the 8 petals, which are the different islands. So Navadvip means 9 islands. Middle island is where Mayapur is, Antardvip, and then around it we get the other petals. We get the other abodes. So we get 8 petals or 8 dvipas around, like here on this map you'll see Madhyadvip and Godrum Dvip and Rudradvip and Koladvip and Ritudvip, etc. Simantadvip. So in this way, the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears in the material world. He's avatari, so he's completely spiritual, but he appears just like Krishna appears, and he appears with his own spiritual abode. So this is the appearance of the Supreme Lord within the material world. So as Krishna is very special, manifesting special qualities, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also very special. So how are they different? So obviously we see they don't look very similar. Krishna is blue and he's blackish in color. Ganesham, he's playing a flute. He's got cowherd people around him, is dancing with the gopis and herding cows. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doesn't look like that at all. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is going down the street with mridangas and kartals chanting Hare Krishna. And he just is like an ordinary person. He comes from a Brahmin family and he's chanting Hare Krishna. Later he takes sannyas. So he looks quite different from Krishna also, even though they're considered the same. Okay. So this, of course, is explained at the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which quotes from other works. I think these are Rupa Goswami's verses. This one here, this verse, Anarpita Chiram Sharat, what was not offered for a long, long time. That is Unat Ujjwala Rasa. Ujjwala Rasa means Madhurya Rasa. So the Lord appears in order to offer what was not offered for a long, long time. That is Madhurya Rasa. And he has appeared by his mercy in Kali Yuga. Karunaya Avatirna Kalau. This is the special quality of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to present Madhurya Rasa to the material world. Now, Krishna presented that, of course, because he manifested the 5 primary rasas. Mainly, of course, we see in Vrindavan, there's Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. And in Vrindavan, then the main rasa becomes Madhurya Rasa. And therefore, in the Bhagavatam, we have a glorification of that rasa in the 5 chapters of the Ras Lila, particularly. And of course, throughout the rest of the Bhagavatam, Krishna is always thinking of the gopis and everything, Vrindavan, etc. So we get a glorification of that rasa. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also represents that rasa and presents it to the material world. So though Krishna presented it, it is Lord Chaitanya who comes, who gives it to the people of the world so they can understand it and appreciate it and relish it. So he appears in the material world to give out that Madhurya Rasa. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna came and he presented it, not that he gave it out to everybody. But Lord Chaitanya likes to give it out to everybody. Krishna more or less kept it secret. And only for the great devotees who are, very confidential, they can understand the nature of Madhurya Rasa. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu likes to give it to everybody. So that's one difference. And Purata Sundar Jyoti Kadamba Sandipita, he shines like gold. Krishna is dark in color, bluish or blackish. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes out golden in color. So there's some difference there also. He's a different complexion. So these are two of the things. This is just a translation. May the Supreme Lord, who is known as the son of Srimati Sachi Devi, be transcendently situated in the innermost chambers of your heart. Resplendent with the radiance of molten gold, he has appeared in the age of Kali by his causeless mercy to bestow what no incarnation has ever offered before, the most sublime and radiant mellow of devotional service, the mellow of conjugal love. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is presenting Madhurya Rasa to this world, and not just presenting it, he's actually giving it out free. This is the thing. So then we have another verse here from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which explains why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. Now, of course, he comes to give Yuga Dharma. That's the external reason, because then the Yuga Avatar does that. So the Yuga Avatar gives out Sankirtan as the Yuga Dharma. So that's external reason for Lord Chaitanya coming. Deliver the fallen souls through the Harinam. But there's some other reasons as well. Even for Krishna, we say, okay, why does Krishna appear? To restore Dharma when it is destroyed, to kill the demons, protect the devotees. Yeah, that's one thing. But the real reason Krishna appears also is to display his pastimes with his devotees and satisfy his devotees. So that's his esoteric reason. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's esoteric reason are there three reasons actually. Three very intimate reasons related to Madhurya Rasa. So one is he wants to understand the greatness of Radha's love. So when Krishna is Krishna and Radha is expressing her love for him, then he has to play the role of Krishna, so he cannot understand what is Radha's love and how great it is. So Krishna desires to take the role like Radha, so he can experience how great is her love for Krishna. So as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he has love for Krishna. As Krishna, he cannot do that. When he expands to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then he can express love for Krishna, and then he experiences the greatness of Radha's love. He understands what is the depth of Radha's love. So that is one reason. And because he is Krishna, Radha is stimulated by certain qualities which excite that love in her. It may be his peacock feather, maybe his lotus eyes, maybe his color, maybe his yellow dhoti, maybe his flower garland, maybe the sound of his flute, maybe the sound of his voice, maybe his words, maybe his mercy. So many, many different factors which will stimulate Radha's love. So Krishna is there, and then Radha's developing this love. So then Krishna wants to know, what is that greatness of her love? And then also, what are the qualities that she's attracted to in me? So as Krishna, he cannot understand how much he's attracted to certain qualities. So therefore, he takes this other form as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and acts like Radha, being attracted to Krishna. And then he can experience Krishna's peacock feather, Krishna's flute, Krishna's color, etc. that Radha experiences. So this is a second reason to understand the qualities that Radha appreciates in Krishna. And then what is the bliss? The first one was the greatness of her love, to overcome all obstacles, including parents and husband and whatever, scolding and whatever, and how strong that love is. And then the final is the qualities in Krishna. Third is the happiness. What is the bliss that she experiences? What is the joy that she experiences in her love for Krishna? What is her ananda? So when Krishna is playing the role of Krishna, then he cannot really understand those things, even though he's Supreme Lord, because he's identifying himself as the object of Radha's love. So then he cannot so much understand Radha's feelings. So therefore, he takes that other position of being like Radha, so he can experience these and understand these three things. So that's his internal reason for manifesting himself as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay, so as the moon appears from the ocean, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord appeared from the womb of Sachiv. And this way, he was able to experience those things. So to do that, he has to take the role of the devotee of the Lord, not the Lord, even in spite of the fact that he is avatar, he's next to Krishna. Nevertheless, he has to take another different type of role. So now here's another verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So this explains how Radha and Krishna were different, because Radha is Shakti, she's the Hladini Shakti, a transformation of Krishna's love. And Krishna is separate. Even though they're Shakti and Shaktiman are one, somehow they remain separate. But as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the two unite, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not different from Krishna, so that's Krishna, but he takes the mood of Radha. So therefore, in this way, Radha and Krishna unite, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has the identity of Radha. At the same time, he is Krishna. So that Radha and Krishna unite in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Consequently, because of that, taking the mood of Radha, instead of being blackish, he turns golden, like Radharani, takes up her mood. Okay. The loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, they separate themselves eternally. Now these two transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. So in this way, he is two at once. He is internally, he is Krishna, but he has the mood of Radharani also, and that manifests externally as the golden color of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So though he appears, as I mentioned, he's also, he has to follow this role of being covered up. So the normal covered up form is that they're Shaktivesh avatars. They're not, they're jivas with special powers. And 999 times in the day of Brahma, the Kali Yuga avatar is a Shaktivesh avatar. Because that's what's stated in scripture. However, as this comes from the 7th canto of Bhagavat there, it says in Kali Yuga, this Kali Yuga, there is Channa avatar. Channa means covered up. So the Lord appears, but he's in a covered form. So what is this covered form that appears? It is Supreme Lord, not a Shaktivesh avatar, but at the same time, he cannot display all of his powers. So therefore, he appears as a devotee. That way he's covered. So we know that Krishna is there. He's Krishna, but he also acts as Radha, who is the devotee of Krishna. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, he has the mood of Radha, but he doesn't even explicitly display that. He acts as a devotee of the Lord. And then all of his devotees also act as devotees of the Lord. Therefore, we have the prayer, and we say Bhakta Rupa. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Bhakta Rupa. He's the form of a devotee, Supreme Lord in the form of a devotee. So he is Avatari, source of all the avatars. He's not a Shaktivesh avatar, and he's not even an avatar, but he covers up all of these potencies and acts like a normal human being, more than the other avatars. Of course, Krishna also is called the Nara-Akriti, the Lord Param Brahma in the human form. So the Devatas also have difficulty in understanding Krishna as Supreme Lord, like Brahma, because he acts so much like a little child in Vrindavan. So he acts human also. But then again, he displays remarkable powers like killing demons, etc. Putana, Trinavarta, Agasura, etc. Keshi demon. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doesn't even do that. In fact, he just takes sannyas and is non-violent. So he acts very much like a human being, more than Krishna does. So he's, in that way, he's covered. Of course, he also does sometimes manifest powers, but it's very private. So there are stories in Chaitanya Charitamrita and other works of how he manifests forms of Vishwarupa to Advaitacharya, or he may manifest a Varaha form or a Nrsimha form once in a while to a devotee privately. Or to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he manifests 6 Sadhuj form, like that. So he does manifest different forms sometimes, but it's all private. And he never kills the demons. So, as I said, many people, other sampradayas, don't accept on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the avatar of the Lord. They're very puzzled when they say, oh yeah, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is avatar, he's Bhagavan. They're a little puzzled by that. But our acharyas also quote from different places to illustrate how the Lord Chaitanya is indicated in certain ways. So one is this verse in Bhagavatam where the Gargamuni comes and he names Krishna and Balaram. So there's this very famous verse in our acharyas write big commentaries on this verse. So just as now in Dwarpa Yuga, the source of avatars appears, attracting all within himself with black color. So in Kali Yuga as well, during the first part, all avatars appear within him when he takes the yellow form. So there it mentions Pita. Now normally the black is a black form. It's a Krishna form in Kali Yuga. The Dwarpa Yuga form is Shama, and the Kali Yuga form is Krishna black. But here in Bhagavatam, in the 10th canto, there Gargamuni says, no, they will be Pita. They'll be golden in form. But he's also Krishna, Krishna Tam. So Krishna Tam means he's the same as Krishna, but he takes a yellow or golden form. Of course, in Satya Yuga, he is white. And in Treta Yuga, he is red, Rakta. And then in Dwarpa Yuga, he becomes Krishna. And then in Kali Yuga, he becomes Pita. So this is the exceptional form. As I said, the normal form is the blackish in color, but Gargamuni particularly mentions the Pita color here. So who's the Pita avatar? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And just as Krishna has all the avatars within him, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also the avatars within him. So our acharyas also explain when Krishna was born, all the different avatars who exist on some planet in this universe, they have their own special spiritual planet. When Krishna was born, they all merged into his body. And when Krishna disappeared, they all went back to their planets again. And so they get experience with Krishna, everything. And to show that Krishna is supreme, they all entered into his body. So similarly, when Lord Chaitanya appears, all the different forms are within him. Therefore, it says when it says all the avatars appear within him, just as they do with Krishna. Okay. So this is the verse from the 11th canto where the different avatars for the different yugas are described as the Yuga Avatars, the 4 Yuga Avatars. And when it comes to the Kali Yuga avatar, then we have this verse, Krishna Varna Tusha Krishnam, which is very famous. And our acharyas also give nice explanations of this. Those who understand the confidential meaning of scriptures worship the Lord, who is black internally and golden externally, who is accompanied by his associates who have the major and minor limbs, chiefly through chanting. So the Yuga Dharma for Kali Yuga is Sankirtan. So he's the yagya, or the form of worship of the Lord, is Sankirtan Prayaya. And who is he? Krishna Varnam. So Varna can mean complexion or color, or it can mean classification. So as we saw, the Kali Yuga avatar is Pita, is not black. So therefore, Krishna Varna means the class. He's in the class of Krishna, as I said, Krishna Tam Gata. He is the form of Krishna, but he is Pita. So he's Krishna in category. He's Krishna as a class. And then it says Tvisha, which means complexion, Akrishna, opposite, not black. What is the opposite of black? White, color, pale in color. So he's pale in color, or golden in complexion, Tvisha, but he is Krishna in essence, in classification. So this again indicates Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who does kirtan, and is golden complexion, and he is classed as Supreme Lord Krishna. So that's from the 11th canto. So to summarize, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, but he appears in the mood of Radha to experience the greatness of Radha, so you can understand the qualities of Krishna that attract Radha, and to understand the bliss of Radha. So he appears in the mood of Radha, and consequently he is Krishna, but his complexion is golden, as we saw, Pita or Akrishna. And as this last verse from the 11th canto shows, he introduces the Yuga Dharma, which is Sankirtan. And of course, he is also covered, Channa Avatar, as the 7th canto verse of Bhagavat explained. So he appears as a devotee. So when Krishna appears with his associates. And we have nice descriptions in the Bhagavat of his parents and all the elders, and then the friends, the sakas, the cowherd boys, and the gopis, etc. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears, who is Krishna himself, again, all of the associates appear. He appears with his associates. And as Krishna performs pastimes and experiences bliss and gives bliss to all of his associates, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also performs pastimes with his associates. He experiences bliss and he gives bliss to his associates. So there are many, many devotees mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but 5 are identified at the very beginning, which we call the Pancha Tattva, or the 5 Tattvas. Now, the central tattva, of course, is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's non-different from Krishna. But we express this in this prayer. Pancha Tattva Makam Krishnam. Krishna takes the form of 5 tattvas. Bhakta Rupa is one, which is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sarupa, another second form of himself, which is Nityananda. An avatar form, it's a Purusha avatar form as a devotee, Bhakta Avataram, that is who's Mahavishnu, but he becomes Advaita Acharya in the form of a devotee. Bhakta, the devotee as a devotee, that's Srivas Pandit, Narada Muni, who's a Shaktivash avatar actually. And Bhakti Shakti, the Hladini Shakti becomes a devotee. Of course, she already is a devotee as Radha, but then she takes another form as a devotee again, and that is Gadadhar Pandit. So in our prayer to the Panchatattva, we have these 5 forms mentioned. So the Bhakta Rupa. So the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the Bhakta Rupa, but he takes the form of a devotee. Swarupa, the first form, first expansion, as Balaram is the first expansion of Krishna. And then from Balaram expand all of the Vishnu forms in the spiritual world, etc. And then from Shankarshan becomes is the Mahavishnu and produces Yavadaksha Vishnu, Kshirodaksha Vishnu, the Purush avatars. So Nityananda is the source of all the other forms. And then as the Purusha avatar, we have Mahavishnu as an expansion. It's called Mahashankarshan, expansion from Balaram. So we have Advaita Charya, Advaita Prabhu. And then we have all the jivas, but then we have special jivas who are devotees like Shaktavesh Avatar, Narada Muni. Different jivas are given special powers eternally by the Lord. So Narada Muni is very special because he has the Shakti of Bhakti. The Kumaras have the Shakti of Jnana, but we take Bhakti as better. So Narada Muni is very special. So he becomes Shiva's Pandit, Jivata. And with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just as Krishna has Radha right next to him as the Hladini Shakti, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has Gadadhar Pandit as the Shakti. So in this way, we have a nice representation of, the spiritual world in these 5 aspects. And we have Jiva, we have the Shakti, and we have the original form, Swami Bhagavan, and then the 2 expansion forms, that is Balaram Nityananda and Mahavishnu Advaita Charya. Okay? In this way, we have all the tattvas represented here. So this is the hierarchy. So at the top we put Krishna, and right next to him is his consort Radha. And then Balaram is the first expansion. Balaram expands and expands, and eventually he turns into Mahashankarshan, who is Mahavishnu. And then from that we get all the different Shaktavesh avatars, etc. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have Gadadhar as his consort. We have Nityananda, we have Advaita, and we have Shiva's Pandit. As devotees, they actually started sampradayas also. So we have Diksha sampradayas coming from Gadadhar, from Nityananda, from Advaita, and Shiva's Pandit. They started preaching and they gathered disciples and they gave Diksha to different persons. And those lines are still going on today as far as I know. Okay, Panchatattva. So, in Krishna's pastimes, then Krishna displays different types of rasas. And by that, we can identify the certain persons. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also has pastimes with different devotees. And he also displays rasas. And then we can find similarity between those rasas. So as Krishna and Balaram played together, they showed Sakya rasa. So we have Chaitanya and Nityananda also displaying Sakya rasa with a friendly relationship. So if you look in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll always see that Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya are joking together. They're playing, they're fighting, all sorts of things like people in Sakya rasa do. So that's because previously, or in their other form, they are Krishna and Balaram who do the same things. So as Chaitanya and Nityananda, even though they're acting as devotees, they have that similar rasa and it manifests in this form. Now, of course, explicitly, we don't see Nityananda and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu going out and herding cows because they are different forms. They're acting as devotees. So they're not acting as Krishna and Balaram anymore. But that rasa still becomes manifest in their different pastimes as devotees doing Sankirtan. And if you read the Panihati story, then you will understand this Sakyarasa. Lord Chaitanya was not there at Panihati, he was in Puri, but Nityananda was there with his devotees. And a lot of the devotees around Nityananda were also in Sakyarasa. So if you look in Gorganodesh Deepika, there it describes the different associates. So one group were called the 12 Gopals, like Abhiram Thakur or whatever. And they were very closely related to Nityananda. So they had Sakyarasa more or less. And then in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's rasa, there were followers of Nityananda and Sakyarasa. But in Vrindavan, they were cowherd boys. So we find in, for instance, the just before Krishna bewilders Brahma, they cowherd boys, Krishna, they go out into the forest and they sit down on the bank of the Jamuna on the grass and they have a picnic together, exchanging food. So we see that at Panihati, this is a very similar thing where Nityananda sits down and then they distribute the chira and doi to all of the different people there, including his associates around him. They all sit down and they start taking the prasadam together. So it's a very, very similar type of scene. And then Nityananda mentally calls Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he starts feeding him, putting food in his mouth and joking with him. Others cannot see, but Lord Nityananda is doing this. So it's very similar to Krishna and Vrindavan with the cowherd boys, where they exchange food, put food in each other's mouth, etc. So in this way, the moods of Krishna and Balaram manifest in the activities of Nityananda and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sakyarasa. Advaita Charya is Mahavishnu, and Mahavishnu is famous for glancing over Prakriti and manifesting universes. And then he also injects jivas into the universe. And then after the universes are destroyed, all the jivas merge into the body of Mahavishnu, and they lie there all dormant. And then when he wills it, they come out, and he places all the jivas back in the universe. So he is the ultimate shelter of all the jivas within the universe. So that's his position as far as Purusha Avatar. But as a devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he acts a little bit differently because he doesn't just want to do activities like creation, destruction of the material world. So he wants to have something to do with devotional service itself. So instead of creating universes, he becomes the cause of introducing bhakti in this material world. So there's this story told in the Chaitanya Charitamrita how Advaita Acharya saw all of the discrepancies in the people of Navadvip. Some were attracted to logic, and they would just argue with each other, dry logic, and they're all impersonal. Others were attracted to worship of Durga Devi or Kali, and there were tantrics, offering meat and liquor, etc. Others were gross materialists who didn't care about anything. So Advaita Acharya was very, very upset. And then he thought, how are we going to rectify the situation? We must get a powerful avatar of the Lord to descend. So then he remembered this verse. Sri Krishna, who is very affectionate towards his devotees, sells himself to a devotee who offers him merely a tulsi leaf and a palm full of water. So if you're like in Bhagavat Gita, because you offer me a leaf and fruit of flower, so if you do that, then you can buy Krishna. In other words, you control Krishna. So then he thought, okay, I will worship Krishna. with tulsi leaves and water. So he got the Shalagram Shila, took the Ganga water, took a tulsi leaf, and he began worshiping the Supreme Lord and say, you have to come into this material world to save all these jivas in Navadvip, called the Yuga. So then he was the immediate cause of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appearing. Just as in Krishna's appearance, the Devatas went to the milk ocean and said, Supreme Lord comes us attacking everybody, stopping all the sacrifices and persecuting everyone. You have to come in this material world. So that was immediate cause of Krishna's appearance. So Advaita Acharya became the immediate appearance, cause of appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he said, you have to appear and save the people of Kali Yuga from all of this corruption, bad philosophy, and materialism. So then, more than create the material worlds, he causes the manifestation of bhakti in this world. Okay, Gadadhar Pandit, as we saw, was Hladini Shakti of the Lord, but he acts as a devotee again. So therefore, though Gadadhar, Gaur Gadadhar are like Radha and Krishna, and we do have Gaur Gadadhar deities, like in the Yoga pit, there's the deities of Gaur Gadadhar. Still, that relationship is not like Radha Krishna's relationship. They don't have Ras Leela and things like that because they're acting differently. So just as Krishna and Balaram don't go out and herd cows and Navadvip, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Gadadhar don't manifest explicitly Madhurya Rasa. But we see from the conduct of Gadadhar Pandit how devoted he was to Lord Chaitanya, how dedicated he was, that sentiment of the Shakti, Hladini Shakti is there. So he couldn't separate himself from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when Lord Chaitanya went to Puri, he stayed in Puri. The other people, they stayed in Navadvip, and of course, yearly they would come and they would meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for 4 months and go back. But Gadadhar Pandit, he stayed there all the time. He could not separate himself from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this shows that strong connection between them. So therefore, he's identified as the Shakti of the Lord. And Srivas Pandit. Narada Muni is a Shaktavesh avatar of the Lord who preaches bhakti. So he becomes Srivas Pandit, who preaches bhakti also. But the others we see, like Advaita Acharya, Nityananda, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are forms of the Lord, but Srivas Pandit is actually a jiva with special powers. So it's a little bit different category. But it was also very prominent in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. If you go to the Yoga Pit, then you'll see this is the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. Very close by is Shiva's place there. Right behind it, maybe 100 feet away or something, you'll find Srivas Pandit's place there. So they were next door neighbors, so to speak. And Srivas Pandit has a very special position because it is at his house that Lord Chaitanya started the Sankirtan movement. And you'll read descriptions in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of how when Lord Chaitanya came back from Gaya, he had transformed from a logician and an arguer into a devotee doing kirtan, chanting Krishna's name. And everyone was shocked and amazed by this, very joyful. And then Lord Chaitanya started nightly kirtans. Where did he do it? At Srivas Pandit's house. So they would lock the doors so no one can come in, and then all the devotees would be there, and all night they would do kirtan until almost the morning. So this was at Srivas Pandit's house. It's a very, very great devotee. So this gave birth to the Sankirtan movement. At a certain point,
then, of course, Lord Chaitanya said, well, I'm not getting any bliss anymore. I think we have to distribute kirtan to everybody, not just locked up in the house. So we want everybody to go out. And so therefore they preached, and Nityananda and Haridas, they went to Jagai and Madai, and then they got attacked, etc. And then Lord Chaitanya came, and then he forgave Jagai and Madai, they became great devotees. So the Sankirtan movement started in Srivas Pandit's house, then from there it expanded all over Navadvip and went beyond that after 1 year. Also in Srivas Pandit's house, one time, Lord Chaitanya called all the devotees, and then he sat on the simhasan, the altar. And then all the devotees began to worship him. So that's the source of that song that we sing. On the right-hand side is Nityananda, on the left-hand side is Gadadhar, nearby is Advaita, and Srivas, it's his house, he's holding the umbrella. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is sitting on a golden throne, and Brahma and the Devatas are doing arti to them. So that's the arti song we sing. So at a certain time, one night, Lord Chaitanya revealed himself as the Supreme Lord to his devotees only, and then they began to worship him, and he gave blessings in different ways. So that happened at Srivas Pandit's house. In other words, because he was such a great devotee, Lord Chaitanya decided to manifest himself as Supreme Lord also. So that took place at Srivas Pandit's house. And if you go to the Yog Pit, then again, you'll see that there's that depiction there in one of the temples there. The depiction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sitting on the throne, and Nityananda, Gadadhar, Advaita, and Srivas standing there with the umbrella. So in this way, we got all of them represented. Huh? Okay. Well, okay, I think we have to end here. Anyway, there were associates in other places also. The associates in Navadvip, when Lord Chaitanya started his Kirtan movement, etc. So we have Srivas, Nityananda, and Advaitacharya there, Haridas Thakur, etc. We get associates in Puri, so we get people like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Ramananda Roy, and sannyasis like Paramananda Puri, and others. And of course, we get the Gadadhar staying there as well. Swarup Damodar is there, etc. And so that's a group of devotees there. And then we get a group of devotees in Vrindavan. That is Rupa and Sanatana, 6 Goswamis, Bhugarbha and Lokanath, and a few others. Krishna's Kaviraj, who stayed in Vrindavan. And they started writing scriptures and discovering the pastime places of Krishna because of the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we get devotees spread out in these 3 places, Navadvip, Puri, and Vrindavan. And they're all identified as associates also in Krishna Lila. Most. So some are cowherd boys, some are like parents, some are gopis, some are manjaris. In this way, Krishna appears in Vrindavan, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears, and the same people appear within his pastimes in Navadvip, Puri, and Vrindavan. Okay, Hare Krishna. Any question there?
Thank you, Maharaj. Dear devotees, any questions you may have? Please raise your hand and unmute. Let me hold on. I'll unmute. Yep. Yeah, I was just remembering when you were mentioning, Maharaj, about Krishna's and Gaur Leela's pastimes comparing. When I think Mahaprabhu was initiated and came back from Gaya, then he came, then he was crying and shedding tears. Then everybody asking what happened. He became a madman. He had some disease. Then Sachimata, then the Mahaprabhu was asking, and Sachimata asking Srivas Thakur, and Srivas Thakur then chanted a verse from this Brahma Vimohan Leela. Naumidyate Upaseta Tambara Gunjavatam Saparapichala Satmukaya Vannasraje Kalavetra Vishalavenu Madhupade Pasupangajaya. Then immediately Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited loving symptoms, ecstatic symptoms, and Srivas Thakur said this is not sickness, this is actually transcendental ecstasy. You are on the right track. So, a similar way, I was remembering that pastime of Mahaprabhu meeting Nityananda Prabhu in Nandana Acharya's house, which is in Mayapur. Where then Mahaprabhu asked to chant a verse of Krishna Leela. Then immediately, then Nityananda Prabhu was in ecstasy. So we see the similar. Thank you so much for nicely giving that contrast and the flavor of Krishna Leela and Gaur Leela. So very nice. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Okay.
Devotees, anyone has questions? No questions. We have another one. Maybe on the Gaur Leela pastimes, Maharaj, you also translated Murari Gupta Karacha. You can maybe give some idea about how these various books we see, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mangal, Chaitanya Bhagavat, Murari Gupta Karacha, the chronology or some kind of you can give, means where this information is coming from, how these many books and the pastimes, how so if you can give some idea, that will help.
Yeah, well, these devotees who wrote these books, most seem to were written after Lord Chaitanya's disappearance, but then the Chaitanya Charitamrita was written even a little bit later even. So he consulted Murari Gupta's Kadacha and a few other works like that, and then he wrote his work. By then the Chaitanya Bhagavat was also written. So Chaitanya Charitamrita came a little bit later, but he based his work on the previous works. He knew them as well. But Krishna's Kaviraj was himself probably didn't witness a lot of things. So he based his facts on those works there, who people actually witnessed things. But then sometimes we see there's little contradictions or little details are sometimes different, some of the different works. And I think Kavikana Pura has written a work also. And then there's a few others that wrote works also. And we see there's slight differences in some places. Some of those maybe major differences, in fact. So we find that there's some different, details which are a little bit different. But the Chaitanya Charitamrita is basically, it's got a lot of the philosophy in it. Whereas Chaitanya Bhagavat is mainly the first pastimes and not the pastimes later on in Puri, etc. So Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says, yes, he gives a little summary of the pastimes and Navadvip, but he concentrates more on the later pastimes and on the philosophy, because those things were already, details were given of the Navadvip pastimes in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, so he doesn't concentrate on that. So there's various works and there's slight different details in some of them. They're not so important, but obviously those some discrepancies there. And then we have later works after that also. What have works going on into like Bhakti Ratnakar written a few hundred years later or whatever. So that's again based upon recollections more or less. So by then, maybe the details get a little more fuzzy. So they didn't have tape recorders or videos or anything at that time. So only the devotees with their memories and what they wrote down, those were the records they had, and then they could consult those to write their things. So therefore, sometimes the transmission was not so accurate, maybe, or maybe the memories also weren't so accurate. So sometimes that's why we get the slight discrepancies.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. There is one question in the chat from Guru Ayar Prabhu. Why Mahaprabhu demonstrated his pastimes with superior Sakshi or souls?
Why?
Why Mahaprabhu demonstrated pastimes with superior souls? I'm not sure exactly what superior souls.
Superior souls?
Yeah.
What does that mean, superior souls?
Guru Prabhu, can you elaborate what you mean? Are you talking about the pastimes in the mood of
Maharaj? I'm talking about superior Sakti, right? Like Nityananda Prabhu all his associates, they are all not a Jivatma. They are all superior things, right?
Yeah.
So most of his pastime, when I read Chaitanya Charitamrita, the pastimes is always with superior personalities.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, of course, just as Krishna appears, he appears with his eternal associates and whatever as well. They may be Shakti, or they may be eternal Nityasiddhas or whatever. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears in that way also. But some will see, again, are there regular jivas who may appear in this material world. He delivers the Patans, who were Muslims, or he has pastimes with the Buddhists, whatever, or he has pastimes of just chanting the holy name wherever he goes when he's going through South India and delivering people on the way. So in that way, he has contact with this normal jivas in the material world also.
Guru Prabhu, you are good. You have further questions?
I'm okay, Prabhu. Thank you, Maharaj.
Bhakti Ratnakar Prabhu and Taruni Radha Mata. Go ahead, Bhakti Ratnakar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam Maharaj. Sorry, Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thanks for a very comparable between the Krishna Leela and the God Leela, Prabhuji. Really cleared many of the concepts. I have two questions, Prabhuji. Question number one is, God Leela is as significant as Krishna Leela. Maharaj, it is as potent as Krishna Leela, but why it is little bit esoteric? Why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't want to reveal while he was on this, but it was revealed later afterwards through his devotees? There must be definitely some reason. That is one question, Maharaj. And second question, Maharaj, is all these books which were written by our the 6 Goswamis and all, when were they collected, and how were they basically collected? I know they must be in different times, and but luckily we have all together because of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. But where was this mention of the collecting all these and in one, documenting in one place, or storing them in one place? How did they transport it back to Maya Navadvip? These are the two questions, Maharaj. Yeah.
The first one was?
The first one was, Maharaj, that why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to not to reveal his pastimes and his glories and his Leela while he's there. He wanted
he's somewhat secret, but we see that with his devotees, like he had the 21-hour Mahaprakash where he revealed himself and sat on the throne of Vishnu and all the devotees worshipped him. That was private. And as I said, he also revealed Vishwarupa to Advaitacharya, Sadbhuj to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, etc., Radha Krishna to Ramananda Roy. So he revealed various forms to different people at different times, Varaha, Nrsimha, etc. So he revealed his powers in different ways to different persons, but it was all very secret because he's playing the role of a bhakta as a devotee. He is a covered avatar in Kali Yuga, so he more or less doesn't act and display powers as Supreme Lord so much. And the second part is that a lot of the scriptures were written by the Goswamis during and after Lord Chaitanya's time. So Rupa and Sanata and Raghunath and Gopal Bhatta were the main ones there who wrote. Then there's a few others around them who wrote other works as well. They were gathered together by Jiva Goswami, and he also wrote works, very significant works. And he ordered Srinivasacharya, who was a student at that time and got initiated by Gopal Bhatta, to take all the works back to Bengal. He was with Narottam, so that they went back to Bengal with all the works of the Goswamis at that time. So that's how the Sanskrit works got to Bengal. And then, of course, once they were in Bengal, they distributed them and they made copies of them, etc. And in Vrindavan, they made copies also. Now,
this is all palm leaf manuscripts, which you have to copy by hand. It's not very long lasting. So, it's fragile. So things are bound to get lost and whatever, or corrupted, and they make a copy and they make a mistake and whatever. We have different versions of the text because they copied them differently or something like this. So there's problems there. Some of the works are lost, for instance. We don't know some of the works, where they are. So that's influence of material time. But it looks like all of the works of Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Gopal Bhatta are there. Some of the other works, like Baladev Vijayabhusan, apparently he wrote commentaries on the Upanishads, but all we have is commentary on Isa Upanishad now, but he wrote on 10 Upanishads, but we don't have those commentaries. So like that, some things are missing. But by Krishna's mercy, most of the things have come down to the modern age. Surprisingly, even a work like Chaitanya Charitamrita, which was produced in Bengal, by the time of Lord Chaitanya, it was not available. He had to search around for a copy of it. He couldn't find a good copy of it even. So he had to search, and people had heard of it, but they hadn't read it. They heard about it, maybe someone had seen it, but nobody had actually read it. So it had become a little bit uncommon even in Bhaktivinoda's time, which is in the 1850s or so. So by that time, a lot of the works were out of print. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, of course, took trouble to print a lot of these works with the printing press. So that was to his credit. And then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati also did the same thing. He started printing these works on the printing press.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much. And please pardon my offense of calling Prabhuji, because in the flow I have told. Sorry, Maharaj, for that. Thank you very much for your enlightened session.
Tarani Radha Mataji, go ahead next, and then Anil Kumar Prabhu next after that. Tarani Radha Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for this beautiful class. My question was, I was contemplating how Mahaprabhu was very scholarly in his beginning pastimes, right? And then he just gives it up after his initiation and then gives most importance to bhakti. So in the life of a sadhaka too, in the beginning, we need to have knowledge of what is what, and then we are referring to scriptures. But that ultimately doesn't please Krishna as much as bhakti does, right? Ultimately, what Krishna sees as how much of devotion that you have for him, that is what really counts. So what is the significance of gathering and understanding a lot of scriptures, Maharaj? So with what perspective should our sadhaka?
Well, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a little different. He was absorbed in knowledge, but it was not knowledge of bhakti at all. It was logic. So he liked to defeat people by giving logical arguments. And then the devotees are looking at it, what is this? This is all useless, tarka, just debating and winning. Yeah? So that's what is condemned. But knowledge of scripture, that is very valuable. And that's why the Goswamis were ordered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to write. So they wrote works so that we could understand what is the nature of bhakti, what is the nature of God, who is he, Bhagavat Sandarbha, Bhakti Sandarbha, Priti Sandarbha. All of these things are there to explain the nature of bhakti. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, what is rasa? So if we don't understand these things, we cannot attain them. So just like you can be a doctor, but to be a doctor, then you have to understand there's so many things. You can't just suddenly say, I'm a doctor, and you have to study. So if you want prema, then you have to understand what prema is and how to get it and who Krishna is, etc. What are his wonderful qualities, so we can develop love for him. So we do need knowledge in order to get to the goal, prema.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Anil Kumar Prabhu, go ahead next.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. My question is a little bit related to like the way in Ramayana, Ram and Sita go synonymous. Likewise, when we talk about Lord Krishna, Krishna and Radha go synonymous, right? Although in Ramayana, Sita is the married wife of Rama. But when I try to look at Krishna, he married to Rukmini, but she doesn't get revered as much. Whereas Radha, whose name gets synonymous with Krishna as a goddess, he never married. From your perspective, and since you have read so much, do you see any references to like why would that be the case in case of Krishna?
Oh, well, actually, he does both. He gets married and he's not married. He has two forms. So we're familiar with the unmarried form, which is called Parakiya Rasa, where Radharani is married to another husband, Abhimanyu, and she sneaks off and meets Krishna and Rasalila, etc., etc. So that's called Parakiya Rasa. So that was very celebrated. But then Jiva Goswami also in Gopal Champu has a whole section at the end where after Krishna comes back from after Kurukshetra, meeting in Kurukshetra, after killing Dantavakra, then he comes back to Vrindavan, and then he marries all the gopis. So they also have Swakya Rasa. So there's also a married form of Radha and Krishna and all the gopis. So both are there.
I see. Okay. Thank you for enlightening me. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Those are the questions, Maharaj. That's it. Anybody else has questions? Yeah, that's about it. Madhupati Prabhu, I want to say anything. Madhupati Prabhu, you are there?
Thank you, Maharaj, for enlivening us. Very fortunate to have you.
Okay. Fine. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, for our obeisances. Vancha kalpadrubhyasya kripa sindhubhyo vacha patitanam pavane.
Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Vaishnavindaki.
Yeah.
Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Jai. Quick announcements. Sunday feast is on in person. Please join us today evening from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. with Sunday feast prasadam, class and main arti. And March 1st is on today Parna time is anyway, 6:37 to 10:17 a.m. If you haven't broke the fast, then today is also Sri Ishwara Puri, spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's disappearance day, very, very important day. Exalted spiritual masters. And then March 1st, Tuesday is Shivaratri. So we'll let you know how we are celebrating, maybe Kirtan in the evening or something, on a Zoom maybe. So, and March 17th, Thursday, there is the biggest festival coming up. Gaur Purnima, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai.
Yeah.
March 17th, Thursday. So in the evening, we'll be celebrating 6:30 or 7 to 9 p.m. with Abhishek, Kirtan, Arti. So please join us, and you can bring some of the items which Mahaprabhu's favorites. Prem Sarar Mataji is compiling the list, so we'll send you the link. You can fill your name against the items, 108 items. By Wednesday, we'll post it. So Govindas is on. You can avail some of Govinda specials, today being Dwadasi. So, yeah, those are the immediate announcements. Madhubhadru, any other announcements?
No, you covered it.
Yes. Thank you everyone for joining. Please join today evening in person as much as possible. Yeah. I'll conclude today's Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhaktan ki jai.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system. Anil Shabab is not available. Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice